Let's talk about exception handling. We'll learn about what exceptions are, we'll learn about the different types of exceptions, and we'll also learn how to handle exceptions. But before we get into that discussion, let's talk about two things. We will talk about compile time and we will talk about runtime. What do we mean by compile time and runtime? Let's understand this by looking at a very simple example in code. So here we have a very simple program. We have a few statements. It starts with the start of the program being printed out. It ends with end program being printed out. Great. Now, in the middle, we have a string x. This is the value stored in x. We just print out x. We have an integer y whose value is 2, and we print out the value of y. We have an array with 4 different integers, so 4 elements, and we print out the address or the reference to the array. And we have a character z, and we also print out the character. Very simple code. When we run it, this is our result. Start of the program gets printed, x is a string gets printed from here, value of y is 2 gets printed from here, the address gets printed from this statement, this statement prints this output, and then we just print end program. Extremely simple code. So we have around 10 statements here, right? And this code ran properly. We did not have any issues. There were no errors or problems in this code. So now we will introduce some problems in the code. Let's say we do not initialize y. Let's say we only say that y is an integer, and then after that we ask our code to print y. It'll give us an error. It'll say that y is not initialized. Let's go on ahead and run the program anyway. So it's compiling right now. And when it tries to compile, it gets an error. So our program did not run at all. Our program was being compiled, and during compile time, it got an error and it stopped. So no code was executed. Our code did not even start to execute. So you see, there can be problems that can occur in our program during compile time. And that is what compile time means. At the time when Java is compiling our code, is there any problem? During the time of compilation, there was a problem in our code. We did not initialize y, which is why our code did not even complete compiling. So this shows you that there can be issues in our code during compile time, which can prevent us from even compiling our code. If we give y a value, and if we initialize y, in that case, when we run the program, it compiles fine, and then we get the correct result. Now our program has fully compiled with no issues. So I hope you understand what compile time is. It is the time at which Java is compiling our code. During that time, if there are any errors, then we say that those are compile time errors. Great. Now we understand what compile time errors are. Let's now put some other kind of a problem in our code. Let's say we have a new integer, c, and let's say this integer is any one of the elements in this array. So we can say my array 3. In that case, the value of c would be 8 because this denotes the index of the array. The index of 5 is 0, the index of 6 is 1, the index of 7 is 2, and the index of 8 is 3. Since we are trying to get the element at the third index, the value of c would be 8. But what if instead of 3, we go even higher? Let's say we go to 7. At this point, there is no element at the 7th index of my array. This should give us some problem, but we want to see whether or not our program compiles correctly. So let's see if our program compiles and we get any result. So let's run the program and see what happens. So it's compiling, and it seems that the program has compiled with no errors. And the program started to run as well, which is why we see that this statement was executed. We can see the output here from our first statement. We also see the output from our second part of the code. X is a string is being printed. We also see output from the third part of the code. The value of y is 2 is being printed. So up till this point, the code ran and executed these instructions. It even executed this instruction. But when it came to this instruction, that is when it encountered some problem. And that is why it's saying that we have an exception. This exception's name is array index out of bounds exception. And it says that index 7 is out of bounds for length 4. Our array is only of length 4 and cannot have an index of 7. But what happens after that? So there was some kind of a problem here. We understand that. But because of this problem, none of our code that came after it got executed. The code before this part got executed, but the code after this part did not get executed because Java encountered an exception at this part. When did Java encounter this exception? It encountered this exception at runtime. It compiled completely fine, but when the program was running, during that time, Java encountered this exception, which means that this is a runtime problem. This problem occurred after the program started running. Whenever we have these kind of problems, we say that these are problems during runtime. So I hope now you understand what compile time means. I hope you also understand what runtime means. Compile time means during the time when Java is compiling our code. Compiling happens before even the very first instruction runs. Before everything runs, the code needs to be compiled. During that time, if we encounter a problem, we say that we are encountering a problem during compile time. But if our program compiles okay and starts to run as well, but then finds a problem, that is a problem that is said to be encountered during runtime. So I hope you understand the difference between compile time and runtime now.